Good morning, everyone. My name is Wendy Van Pembroke, and I work for Kootenay Rockies Tourism in the role of Manager of Business Development and Special Projects. So welcome to today's webinar, HR Considerations for an Effective Return to Work. Before we get started, some very exciting news this week for the Tourism Resiliency Program. It was announced at the close of the National Tourism Week that the program will receive $1 million in funding from Western Economic Diversification Canada. This will allow the program to continue and evolve province-wide and support more tourism businesses across BC on your road to long-term resiliency. If you're tuning in this morning but have not yet signed up for the program, please register at tourismresiliency.ca or contact your regional destination management organization. You can enter the program at any time and at whatever phase in your recovery that you need support. I'd like to acknowledge and thank our partners, without whom this program would not be possible. Partners include the Ministry of Tourism, Arts and Culture, Island Coastal Economic Trust, the BC Regional Tourism Secretariat, which is a collaboration between BC's 5 regional destination management organizations, including Tourism Vancouver Island, Thompson Okanagan Tourism Association, Kootenay Rockies Tourism Association, Caribou Chilcotin Coast Tourism Association, and Northern BC Tourism Association, along with Destination BC and Indigenous Tourism BC. So just a little bit of housekeeping. This morning's webinar will be approximately 60 minutes in length, including Q&A. Please use the Q&A function, which is located at the bottom of your screen, to submit any questions. The webinar is being recorded and will be posted to the Tourism Resiliency Program website by the end of day tomorrow. We also want to share that our next webinar will take place next week on Wednesday, June 10th at 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and will be a presentation by Shopify titled Offline to Online. This session is geared towards helping businesses get set up to sell online for the first time, and you can register for this webinar on the tourismresiliency.ca website. It is now my pleasure to introduce this morning's presenter. We are joined by Sara Bauer with Chemistry Consulting. Sara has over 17 years of experience in human resources, working in both an operational and consulting capacity within a variety of sectors. As an HR consultant, Sara is able to provide support in many areas, including day-to-day HR management, policy development, implementation, training, onboarding, performance management, documentation, and more. This morning, she will provide us with employee and workplace recommendations for reopening your business operations, including implementing safe workplace protocols and coordinating how employees return to work. Welcome, Sara.
Thanks, Wendy. Good morning and welcome. Thank you for joining us this morning to chat about HR considerations for an effective return to work. The purpose of this webinar is to help you navigate some of the general questions and challenges you are facing as you prepare to reopen, and to hopefully ease some of your HR concerns. During this webinar, we're going to look at the things you need to consider before bringing your employees back to work, how and when to bring your employees back to work, and how to create a positive and engaged environment in our new ways of working. As we walk through the presentation, if you have questions, as Wendy said, please type them in and she'll be monitoring those. There'll also be a Q&A at the end of the presentation. So I'm going to switch off camera so you can focus on the presentation and share my screen. Thank you. Thank you to everyone for doing their part to flatten the curve of the spread of this pandemic. Many of you have faced very difficult and challenging times, and we know it has had a significant impact on your organization and your teams. There's still a lot of unknowns as we look to implement the new normal, and the state of the province and the island is changing almost daily. But through the efforts of the Tourism Vancouver Island Coastal Resiliency Program, we are all here to offer guidance and support to help you reopen your doors and look ahead. In preparation to reopen, there are a number of steps to review and to consider prior to welcoming back your staff and before you'll be ready to reopen for business. Prior to attempting to navigate the return to work protocols, consider implementing a return to work team or a return to work committee. This should be a cross-functional team with employees from across the company. These could be individuals you've appointed to the team or individuals who have volunteered to participate. There should be a senior manager on the team or an appointed a sponsor to help with any decision making along the way and to help speed up the process. If you have an HR manager or an HR employee on your team, I recommend that they lead this team or at least are a part of it. If you are a small company, you may consider appointing 1 or 2 key individuals to manage this important task. And they would act as a resource on the return to work protocols for employees once they're back in your building. This team may not be responsible for overseeing the actual implementation of the return to work program, but they would be responsible to ensure that they have all the information required specific to your industry, business, and the specific workplace settings. Sorry, my screen's not cooperating with me today. Workplace preparation. Have your return to work team or designated person develop a safety plan. Ensure this is in accordance with all the guidelines set out for your specific industry, business, and specific working space. You may also choose to engage a third party to help you facilitate a return to work plan appropriate for your workplace. Work with your landlord to receive a copy of their safety plan for the building and shared spaces. Incorporate this into your workplace plan so all your staff are aware of the all-encompassing plan. Map out a redefined workspace and determine how many employees you can safely accommodate. If you cannot accommodate all employees, assess which employees and positions are required within the workplace and which roles have the ability to function remotely. You also want to identify any PPE requirements per WorkSafe BC. Ensure these are in supply when you have your employees return to work. These would include things like masks, sanitizer, gloves, any plexiglass requirements, etc. Some of these items may be very challenging to locate given the number of businesses in this situation, everyone returning to work, and the surge of customers buying all PPE throughout the pandemic. Try to find a local resource. Many small companies or individuals are making these products. Local manufacturers, breweries, distilleries, even beauty supply companies took to making sanitizers or cleaning products. A number of local citizens have been producing masks, non-medical versions, but in many workplaces, these are sufficient. This will not only allow you to get the products you require in a timely manner, but you'll also be supporting local small company or your neighbor. Deep clean the office in anticipation of returning staff and customers, and develop an ongoing cleaning plan or schedule. This is another area where you may require a third party to come in and do a deep clean. Determine guidelines for safe use of common areas, such as washrooms, the kitchen, meeting rooms, hallways. Determine how many people can be in there at once. Implement measures for shared equipment, your printers, copiers, supply cabinets, even kitchen areas such as your fridge, microwave, coffee maker, etc. Consider the safety procedures required for welcoming any guests or customers to your stores or office. In preparation for a workplace opening, you would want to conduct a review of your employee policy manual. Ensure all policies are up to date and in line with employment standards and legislation. Focus on your sick leave policy, remote work policy, and health and safety practices. You want to ensure you are introducing policies for people who may be feeling unwell or a little under the weather who would normally come to work in those situations. We want to protect all workers in the workplace without forcing everyone to utilize their sick time if they just have the sniffles. If you do not have an employee policy manual in place, this is the time to consider having one developed for your company. Set clear guidelines for your staff and makes it easier for you and your management team to manage those expectations. You also want to review and update your company employment agreements. If you do not have ensuring that you have up-to-date employment agreements is very important. You should have an employment agreement in place for every employee. It clearly outlines the terms of employment, start date, end date for short-term employees, defines if the role is part-time or full-time, establishes that salary, and ensures that you are upholding the BC Employment Standards Act and operating within those guidelines. Leading into COVID, many companies did not have a layoff clause in their agreements, mostly because layoffs are typically seen in particular industries where there is seasonal work or greater fluctuations in business, such as logging or retail industries. It was rare to see layoffs in a corporate setting. While majority of the country laid off employees over the past 4 months, unless it was specifically outlined in their employment agreements, layoffs were technically not permitted. To mitigate this going forward, and in case of future situations like this, it is advised to incorporate a layoff clause into your employment agreement to eliminate risk as the employer and to ensure your staff are protected. Once you have your workplace prepared to welcome your employees back, now is the time to communicate the return to work plans with your team. Connect with your team and communicate the plan. You want to discuss the protocols you're putting in place for your workplace, the building landlord protocols, and expectations of the team, such as wearing a mask or gloves. You want to give your employees at least 1 week to return to the workplace and organize their behind the scenes. If anyone raises concerns regarding returning to work, address those concerns privately and one-on-one. Understand that there are many people nervous or fearful to be returning to work. Listen to their concerns, be compassionate and understanding. You will need to make a decision on a case-by-case basis as to whether or not remote work will be permitted. Each case will be different, so there's not a blanket answer or a blanket solution that I can provide to you onto who must return to work right away and who can remain on layoff or who can remain working from home. If you have specific questions related to this, please contact me through the program and I can work with you to understand the specifics. So now what? Now that you've returned to the workplace, what do we do? Determine what the new normal is for you and your team. Are you going to be open to the public? Have you changed your services or your level of offering? What does this company look like going forward post-COVID? For the most part, you want to create an environment that feels like business as usual. Review goals and objectives and the roles and responsibilities of your team. If you continued to work through the pandemic, many roles shifted and took on a revised set of tasks. Others have been off work for a few months and can quickly get out of a routine. Take the time to reset with your team one-on-one and redevelop those expectations. Think outside the box. So this is an area where we want to get creative. In many of our workplaces, we have areas where we would meet, such as a boardroom or a community table. With social distancing in place, the boardroom is the last place we want to have a meeting. So think outside the box. Tell your staff to pack up a lunch and a lawn chair and have your next team meeting outside. Venture to a nearby park or beach, or even just sit in the parking lot on lawn chairs. You can continue to utilize technology and use video meetings, Zoom like we are today, even within the four walls of your workplace. This also allows you to include anyone that is continuing to work remotely. Encourage your team to reconnect. Having engaged employees is very important during this time. So much like having an outdoor meeting, encourage the staff to reconnect, order in lunch, and have a picnic outside while maintaining social distancing. Encourage them to continue Zoom happy hour meetings that a lot of companies did. A little extra office chatter while we're easing back into this should be welcomed. Not everyone has had the opportunity to connect with their peers or friends over the past few months, so there's a lot to catch up on, and the team may feel happier and more engaged, being able to have a little bit of normal social interaction that we've been lacking the last 4 months. Be patient and understanding with your team. Whether returning to the workplace from a remote worker or returning to work after being on layoff for 4 months, this will be an adjustment. It'll take time to find our footing again. Communicate openly with your staff, offer guidance, coaching, and support, and appreciate that the first week or so may be a little hard and may take some getting used to. Be flexible. Many of our staff coming back to work still have loved ones at home, kids are not yet back to school, and many people have not yet returned to work. So be understanding if a mom needs to check in on her kids. Offer flexible work schedules where possible for those parents balancing being back at work with their children's or loved ones still at home. Consider allowing a transition time between working from home and returning to the office full time. You could allow someone to remotely work for several days a week, coming into the office every other day as example to ease back into that situation. Understand that while we are returning to work, the province is trying to reopen its doors, and many people faced a very challenging time. There were financial implications, personal struggles, and this has affected everyone in a very different way. I urge you to be mindful of someone that is perhaps not seeming themselves or isn't working to capacity or the level that you are accustomed to. We need to show empathy and compassion and transition into this new normal. Highlight all the benefits that are available to your team. We often have a benefit booklet that sits on a shelf somewhere and we don't even really know what's available to us or what the program truly offers. So ensure your team knows everything provided. Many companies offer an employee assistance program, and that is where your staff can seek mental health care and support, wellness programs, and in some cases, even financial programs. Encourage the use of available vacation time. While it seems like everyone's been off work or working from home, this has not been a vacation. Trust me, having my 3 teenagers interrupt me every 10 minutes to know what's for breakfast, lunch, or dinner, or the 97th snack of the day, or to show me the coolest new TikTok video they've all been working on was far from relaxing. So with the province slowly reopening and people venturing out, encourage your team to take their vacation time to reconnect with family and friends, enjoy activities with the kids, or just enjoy a day of true rest and relaxation, which we haven't had for quite some time. That being said, you may also want to consider making a one-time exception to your vacation policy to allow employees to carry forward vacation days into next year. Know your team. Be observant of your team and who is doing well and who may be having challenges returning to work. Have frequent one-on-one conversations with your employees to understand how they are feeling, what you can do to better support them, and what they need from you to make this transition a successful one. Focusing on the health, well-being, and engagement of your employees first and foremost will help you to have a successful return to work. We've attached some resources for your reference, and I know Hannah's going to be sending this out to everyone tomorrow. So we have a link here for your WorkSafe BC updates. We also have a link for your federal updates on COVID and return to work, as well as Island Health. We've also included a checklist that our team has created to help you return to work. There's lots of interesting little tips and tricks, many of the things we talked about today, and then some additional ones. So thank you for that. I'll turn to Wendy to see if we have any questions that have come through.
Yes, thank you very much, Sarah. That was a very informative information session. Yes, we do have a couple of questions here, and to the audience, feel free to add some more. The first one is regarding employment agreements. The question is, my company is very small with 5 long-term employees who have never had an employment agreement. Why should I put one in place now?
Great question. And this is something I've been dealing with every day during COVID and especially as we return to work. So the importance of having an employment agreement, it sets the standards for the actual job itself. So you're outlining what the actual role is, the start date, if there's an end date, the salary. You're also putting in writing that you're adhering to employment standards. Without having this in place, you're actually going to fall under common law. So on the one hand, you want to make sure you have your agreements to protect your employees, to say you're adhering to employment standards. On the other side, you want to make sure this is in place to protect you as a company. So if you do have long-term employees, if, heaven forbid, you had to exit an employee from your company, for instance, falling under common law would cost you significantly more in severance than if they were employment standards. So employment standards is up to your 8 weeks of pay. And then some, there's other considerations we take into account there. But there is a maximum and there are some guidelines. Falling under common law, you would actually be paying 1 month of severance for a year of service opposed to 1 week. So especially as you go into having longer term employees, this could get significantly costly. The other piece of it is, again, it says to your employees, we are adhering to legislation, we are adhering to employment standards, we are here to protect you, and it just creates a solid agreement between you, the company, and the employee.
Excellent. Thank you, Sarah. So the second question is, does BC Employment Standards have a policy manual template?
That is a great question. I do not believe so. Employment standards really outlines legalities. It doesn't include human rights. It doesn't address policies. It really addresses things around pay, hours of work, and time. So they may have some blanket policies around vacation and hours of work, overtime clauses, etc. I've not ever seen one offered by employment standards. That's typically something that you would outsource to a third party. Even through Service Canada, I really haven't seen a template. A lot of them, again, it's so particular to your industry and to your company, so they're often very customized. But as far as I'm aware, Employment Standards does not have one because, again, they don't really write policy.
Good. Thank you, Sarah. Next question. Can you elaborate more on what an EAP is?
Absolutely. So that's an employee assistance program. Many benefits providers do have those available to you. I think they may come at an extra cost. So you can opt to add that into your current benefit providing. And so what they are is, it's usually a resource you can access. And some of them have different levels, much like our benefits have different tiers that you can access at gold, silver, bronze. Some of the EAP programs also have different things that you can access. Many of them have newsletters, and so ours, for example, I was on there recently. There's all kinds of things about wellness. There's yoga classes online. There's also access to counselors. There's mental health information. There's even links to your local kind of areas that can support you if you're having mental health concerns. Often a lot of them also have financial support. And with that is being able to speak to a financial expert, especially going through everything we've gone through right now. People are, have lost wages, they're having trouble paying their mortgages or their bills, don't want to take the deferral, etc. So they could reach out to one of these individuals who may give them some options. They even have things such as bankruptcy counseling and that sort of thing. They even just have wellness things, right? So access to a lot of them, while gyms were shut down, they had some workouts online and some fun newsletters you could read. Some of them even have some recipes and cooking things. So it's really all over the map, and it depends on your program. But the biggest piece of the EAP program is your health and wellness. There is usually a significant mental health section. And again, you have access to experts. And if you don't want to reach out directly to an expert, there are tons of articles and newsletters, and even just links that can take you to places to seek some help.
Good. Thank you, Sarah. Next question. How do we legally terminate employees that will not be coming back after the layoff term?
That is a great question. That is one that I would recommend reaching out to me through the program. I would have 50 different questions to ask to understand your industry, to understand the employee agreement if there is one in place. So there isn't just a blanketed answer that I could give to you. You certainly do have options, but I'd need to really understand the situation a lot better. So please reach out through the program.
Great. And for that particular question, so it's tourismresiliency.ca, and then you find your region, you can register there, and then you can access the expert advice of Sara and Chemistry Consulting. Next question is, do employees bank vacation time while they have been on layoff?
Yes, so employees continue to accrue vacation while on layoff. It is a little different for part-time employees, but for salaried employees, yes, they do continue to accrue that.
Okay. Good. And can you help with developing the policies you spoke about in the presentation? I think I know the answer, but I'll let you go ahead.
Absolutely. Yes, we can. That's something that's one of the specialties that we focus on at Chemistry is we develop customized policy manuals for your organization.
Okay. And again, register through the program or contact Chemistry Consulting directly. Next question. How should I manage if an employee doesn't want to adhere to the back to work policy?
Again, this is another one where I would urge you to reach out to me directly. There's just so many different questions and playing into why don't they want to adhere to it? Why don't they want to come back to work? There are some areas that are protected due to COVID, such as parents that need to stay home with their children as there's no daycares, there's no school yet, if someone's caring for an elderly loved one. So there's so many different parameters. So I urge you to reach out to me directly and we can do a deep dive and I can guide you further.
Oh, thank you. My apologies. My internet just froze. I was typing frantically. So the final question that we have here is, can we bring staff back at reduced hours and reduced salary?
So again, this is another one I would consider reach out to me directly so I can understand the parameters. The short answer is yes, you can. And it would technically still be considered a layoff. But again, this isn't one where I can give a blanket answer. There are so many different things to take into consideration for me to give you a true answer. So please reach out through the program and they'll put you in touch with me and I can give you that guidance.
Excellent. Thank you. Well, that was all the questions in the Q&A. We could bring this to a close. I did want to remind everyone that we will, thank you again to Sara and Chemistry Consulting. This was a very informative session. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Wendy.
Yes, thanks, Sara. We also want to remind you that the next webinar will take place next week on Wednesday, June 10th at 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Again, it's a presentation by Shopify titled Offline to Online. The session is geared to help businesses get set up online for the first time, and you can register on tourismresiliency.ca website. Thanks again to all.